last night Nintendo dropped their latest earnings report that covers all their console sales, software sales through December of 2021, giving us insight on how different things have fared. And so today, I want to take a look at it and talk about what I consider to be some of the highlights. Let's start with the big number, hardware sales. The Nintendo Switch has cleared 100 million and is now sitting at 103.54 million systems sold, which means, yes, it finally has defeated the Wii, which, with the Switch being a hybrid, it could be argued that this is Nintendo's most successful home console of all time. I've seen that coming up on Twitter, people getting a little mad about it, being like, oh, it's not a home console, it's a hybrid. Or I just think of it as a handheld. And I mean, like, dudes, it plays games on the TV. Some people mostly or exclusively use it to play games on their TV. But either way, I think it's worth, comparing it to everything. Yeah, there's nuance, but it's like, what are we supposed to do? Only compare it to other home console handheld hybrids? And so sticking with that, the next evil for the Switch to defeat on Nintendo's side of things is the Game Boy with 118 million units sold. I think that's a pretty sure thing at this point, but the big boy, the DS, 154 million. I mean, that's almost another half of what the Nintendo Switch has sold so far. And we're almost at the 5-year anniversary of the console. If it's going to pass the DS, it's going to have to sell a lot more systems. There's some info that came out on this that might make it a little bit harder, as well as the fact that, who knows when the next Nintendo system, the Switch successor, is going to come. That's going to be a big factor. I mean, is it 2 years away, 3 years away, what? Something else I found interesting with comparing the Switch to things on the Nintendo side was with the Wii U. And I know you might be thinking, ChiGuy, the Switch outsold the Wii U in like the first 15 minutes of releasing. Yeah, but I'm not talking about hardware. The Wii U sold 103 million games, pieces of software. So now the Switch has officially sold more systems, hardware, than the Wii U sold games. For every game that was sold on the Wii U, a Nintendo Switch system has been sold. Feels bad, Wii U bros. The L's, they just keep coming. On the competition side, this puts the Switch ahead of the original PlayStation, which sold 102 million systems. And yeah, similarly, when we look up at the climb to the number one spot, the PS2, 155 million, it's still pretty damn steep. Definitely possible, though. Switching gears to the software performance, the games, Mario Party Superstars has certainly impressed, chalking up a whopping 5.43 million copies sold since launch. Great to see that game doing well. One of the better Mario Party games, in my opinion. And it was nice to actually get the online modes people wanted in the previous game from the start. It does have a ways to go to catch up to Super Mario Party, but a strong debut for sure. On the top 10 list, you'll be shocked, I'm sure, to hear that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe continues its utter dominance with 43.35 million units sold. I mean, geez, you think that port was worth doing? I really thought, with how much of a tear Animal Crossing was on when it first launched, that it was going to clear Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for the top spot, but that consistency for Mario Kart 8, it's too strong. A newcomer to the top 10 list that I'm sure is also very surprising to all of you, the Pokemon Diamond and Pearl remakes, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, just under 14 million units sold. And that's what, the game came out in like mid-November? I mean, the data here is through the end of December, so like a month and a half of sales data for those games. And this is something I've said I worry about with Arceus that just released. I think regardless of how you feel about Arceus on its own as a game, that's the direction I think many would like to see the series head in. But it's like, if these, let's be honest, more half-assed games outperform the ones with actual effort put into them, I mean, even if you're a fan of the Diamond and Pearl remakes, do you really think these games cost as much, took the effort to make that Arceus did? So especially with Game Freak's history, and I know they didn't make the remakes, but if you see even Sword and Shield, which is obviously still on the top 10 as well, and I know Arceus has had a strong start. In fact, it's had a stronger start than Diamond and Pearl. But again, like I said, this game surely required more effort, was way more expensive to make, so if you're not seeing bigger returns from your bigger investment, I don't know, I could see them changing course and just continuing down the easy path they've been taking. Now moving on to something much more interesting than Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, Metroid Dread. Easily last year's Game of the Year, if you ask anyone with a brain who played it, but the Metroid series hasn't historically fared the best. It's much more niche, which I understand why, because it does require you to think just a little bit, which is a deal breaker for many modern players. It's a side-scroller, which also, people were saying like, oh, a side-scroller shouldn't be $60. Again, while they buy their 2 different copies of the Gen 4 remakes that look like mobile games. But Nintendo did some solid marketing for Metroid Dread, pushed it like it was a major release. As I said, the game was phenomenal. I saw a lot of new fans being ushered in on social media with this being like their first Metroid game ever. Very cool to see, but the question was, how well did it actually sell? Well, here's a graph of Dread sales compared to the past major games in the Metroid series, their lifetime sales. And so remember, this game came out in October, and we're talking about sales data for it through December, and it has already chalked up 2.74 million copies sold, putting it just behind Metroid Prime, which had 2.84 million copies sold, and is in the #1 spot for Metroid games. I mean, this is clearly about as awesome of a start for this game as you could have asked for. I thought it was going to do well, but not this well. I mean, at this point, when we're talking right now, it surely has passed. It is like the #1 selling Metroid game now. I mean, look at how bad it's destroyed most of the other Metroid games, definitely all the ones since Prime 1, and those are, again, the lifetime sales of those games. Not to mention, like I said, this is a side-scroller. Prime has that benefit of being more of a FPS, coming off to many as something more AAA. Like I also said, you have a lot of dumb people who passed on this as soon as they saw it was a $60 side-scroller. I mean, yeah, they missed out on the best game of 2021. Maybe instead they bought another shooty bang bang game like Battlefield 2042, which was appropriately titled because 2042 is when the game's going to actually be playable, hopefully. But I said leading up to Dread's release that I felt that this was going to be the most important game released in 2021 because of what its success could mean, obviously, for the Metroid franchise. I think with this strong performance, we're not going to see Samus locked back in the dungeon for a decade anytime soon. I think we're going to get more 2D Metroid games. This will surely help the performance of Prime 4 because while I think that was already going to be a bigger game, you've got a lot of new fans pulled into this franchise with Dread who may not have been planning to pick up Prime 4. Another reason we got to get those other Prime games on the Switch already, Nintendo. And I've heard those rumors about just Prime 1 coming. That's not good enough. I can tell you that right now. If like Prime 1 HD gets announced on its own, and no Prime 2 or 3 before 4 releases, yeah, I'm going to be ranting about that, I promise you. But I also think this could mean a lot for other similar dormant franchises, whether they be inside Nintendo's house or not. The way this was marketed as Samus's grand return, even though it wasn't that long ago that literally Samus Returns came out, but this was given the proper push. Again, the benefits from being an actual continuation of the story on the current system. I said that was a big mistake with Samus Returns, putting it on the 3DS. But I think a lot of people across the industry were eyeing how this all played out to see if it makes sense for them to resurrect some of their old franchises for a similar revival. Maybe even just giving some franchises that AAA treatment that they haven't received in recent years. And with how well Dread is performing, I think you will get more games like this. I think this was just fantastic news, in my opinion. So yeah, a lot of strong numbers for Nintendo all around, which just continues the trend. The forecast for this year's numbers are higher for the most part, except for the system sold, which I alluded to at the beginning. They're worried, as many are, about this chip shortage, that it's going to cause them to sell less systems overall this year, but they expect software to be way up, which makes a lot of sense because of the insane lineup of games set to be released this year. Which, in terms of their upcoming game schedule, we really didn't learn anything here. Much of the same tentative dates we've gotten before. Breath of the Wild 2, though, still on there for 2022. I know there's been a lot of discussion about whether or not that game is going to make it out for this year. Still could get delayed, obviously. But for now, they're saying it's going to make it. And you look at these other killers, Arceus obviously just dropped, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Splatoon 3, Bayonetta 3, certainly more stuff is going to get announced as the year goes on. Things are going great for Nintendo, and it looks like they're just going to keep getting better. Anyway, with that, this video is a wrap. Let me know your thoughts on Nintendo's latest financial update in the comments. Did anything surprise you? How do you feel about those Metroid numbers? Do you think the Switch is going to end up being the best-selling system of all time? As always, I'm the Shy Guy, Johnny Zakari, and thanks for watching.